Forgive me because I'm speaking in a second language about something that is very important, and we need to be very precise to talk about this. So please forgive me if some misunderstanding may occur in our speech. But the point is, obsession is another point. It is a very deep, and it's a general talk, because it comprises psychology, psychiatry, physical help, spiritual help, emotional help. So it's a lot of things. And before that, if you don't mind, I'd like to share with you some slides to read together with you from a book by Chico Xavier. First and foremost, why Chico Xavier? I know people know that he is well known and acclaimed medium in Brazil, but there are very good reasons for that. First and foremost, because he had all kinds of mediumship. He did materializations, you know. And I remember once that his friends talking to me that, and this is in the book too, some books, they said that they got enthusiastic about the quality of Chico's materializations, right? And at the end of some meetings with lots of beautiful materialized spirits from higher realms indeed, to his spirit guide, Emmanuel, he appeared, right, full body, with a torch in his hand, and his right hand raising a torch, with the south, the cross of the south, that constellation. It's a symbol of Brazil too, on his chest, a luminous chest, and said, "Chico, no, your job is the book. Please focus on the book." And he did, because he psychographed about 580 books in the whole, as a whole, you understand? And he was even, I remember Victor Zemet classifying the kind of mediumships that there exist, right? That he found in his book. I don't remember one that Chico didn't have. For example, I remember, for instance, psychometry. I don't know what you call psychometry. Is the capacity of a person that touches an object, and through the touch in the object, the person can perceive things. Chico Xavier had this kind of psychometric mediumship, for example. And he touched a letter before opening the envelope, said, "Okay, this letter is about this and this. Please, let's open it and let's answer, because this is urgent." So this kind of things made him a very special. As I experienced in the meetings, I saw that I couldn't see anything that was not right, or was at odds with everything I experienced in his book, right? Completely consistent to me, of course. Well, so I'd like to, if you don't mind, first read some slides from his book to you. Would you mind if I do this? About 10 minutes, we'll read together with you, and then you can take note. And okay, I'm gonna share. So, obsession, disruptive spiritual influences. Well, I remember this. There was a guy called Paul MacLean, that was a doctor, American doctor, chief of the Laboratory of Brain Evolution and Behavior of the National Institute of Mental Health in the United States. He once said this kind of didactic way of showing the brain in three parts. Today, some people say this is pop psychology. There are other Mr. or Paul, Dr. MacLean, he had some misconceptions about the origin or the division of the brain. Nowadays is not so like that, but even Wikipedia nowadays agrees that this kind of didactic division of the brain is very good to explain how the brain works for lay people. And it happens in 1947 in a book by Chico Xavier called In the Greater World, right? This book is right here. This book here. And in this greater world, there's an instructor, a spiritual instructor in the other realm of life, in the afterlife. He's explaining, right, these three parts of not of the brain, but of the mind itself, which was very useful for me to assess the problems of obsession. So let's see if you can understand. This is instruction speaking to André Luiz, and André Luiz is the guy, is the doctor, this carnate doctor who was being instructed by this higher spirit. And quote, he's saying, in translating impulsiveness, experience, and the higher concepts of the soul, the physical body's nerves, motor area, and frontal lobes are areas of fixation for the incarnate or discarnate mind. Any excessive delay in one of those three areas, along with the actions to which they give rise, determines the destiny of the individual cosmos. Individuals who remain stationary in the realm of the impulses are lost in a maze of cause and effect, wasting both time and energy. Those who give themselves entirely to mechanical efforts without consulting the past and without organizing the basis for the future mechanize their life, depriving it of a divine light. On the other hand, those who live exclusively in the temple of higher ideas expose themselves to the danger of contemplation without labor, of self-denial without benefit. In order for our mind to progress toward higher realms, it must be balanced, making use of past achievements to guide its current endeavors while simultaneously sustaining itself with the hope that flows crystal clear from the lofty fount of higher idealism. By means of this fount, it can capture restorative energies from the divine plane and thus construct a sanctified future. So, just to summarize a little bit, we have this based area, just like Dr. McLean just called the reptile complex, this motor zone, the limbic complex, for example, and the frontal lobes, our moral ideas, our ideas of higher beings. If we are stuck in one of these parts, today, with our everyday life, I think we are very much inclined to be stuck in the first two bases, right, of behavior, the rat race, the fast lane lives, looking for money, looking for survival, and of course, when you need some help from on high, it's difficult to access because of the situation. And then he says, and since we are indissolubly linked to those who are attuned to us in accordance with infallible universal purposes, whenever we lose our balance due to an excessive mental fixation in one of the aforementioned areas, we contact other incarnate and discarnate minds whose conditions are comparable to our own. So this comes another problem, another situation of obsession, because not always obsessor is the invader, right? The person that invades your situation. It's just a friend that you invited because of the way you think and where you are stuck in terms of feelings and objectives that comes from inside of you. And then we have this question at love and intellect. I remember the case of this book that's very common to find in our Spiritist meetings, circles, in terms of spirit release. André Luiz, this is spirit of a doctor who was in the afterlife, he and his instructor bump into a guy that was hospitalized, a physical man, an incarnate man who was hospitalized because it was very bad. His health was very bad, but there were spiritual reasons for his physical bad situation. And André Luiz is in front of the guy. The guy was lying in a hospital bed, and his instructor, they can see a spirit, right? Pursuing, attacking, and arguing with this man. And then they hypnotize this man and they get him out of his body, and he starts fighting with this obsessor. And let's read what they say. Here are two individuals whose minds are fixated in the area of primary instincts. The incarnate one, after pounding his thoughts with repeated vibrations, fleeing from his memories and remorse, has ruined his motor centers. He has also disorganized the glandular system and has disturbed the vital organs. The discarnate one has converted all his energies to feed his ideas of vengeance, given way to hatred where he remains isolated from reason and altruism. Their situation would be different if both had forgotten the offense, and had picked themselves up through constructive labor and fraternal understanding in the sanctuary of true forgiveness. So the guys, but this is something that happens very much. You feel guilty, you go to work. Many people get depressed, but many people go to work. Nowadays, scientists have revealed that there are work lovers and workaholics. Workaholics are usually running away from something. And this book is from 1947. And then André Luiz talks to his instructor in the following way, quote, why don't we help these people, these guys who are fighting outside the body, why don't we help them with enlightening words? The patient looked afflicted, while his persecutor was now assuming a more aggressive manner. Why not restrain the cruel hand that threatens this wretched being? Wouldn't it be best to prevent a quarrel that could lead to unpredictable consequences for the hospitalized patient? So he questions his instructor, oh, come on, let's stop this fight. The guy is already hospitalized and he's going to feel much worse when he wakes up. And he continues, now the instructor is speaking. We would speak in vain, André, because we still don't know how to love them as if they were our brothers or sons. To both of us, spirits of somewhat advanced reasoning, but of less sublime sentiments, there are two unfortunates and nothing more. For the time being, we can give them what we have, that is, helpful intervention in their outward suffering within the limits of our acquisitions in the area of knowledge alone. But he says, certain arrangements haven't been forgotten though. Sister Cipriana, the supervisor from my fraternal assistance group, will be here shortly. So this is something very important and we can discuss later after we stop reading this. Spirits in a good Spiritist meeting of spirit release and good mediums, spirits, they understand suppose they are being helped because they're in bad situation, but if you're not sincere. For example, if you just dress up a cloak of a religious good person, but if your heart is not sincerely into the task, the spirit may understand that it is not good because it said, oh, come on, you're being false. You're saying me good words, but your heart is full of prejudice over me. So you need to get prepared for this kind of work, because you need to be very sincere, very honest, and as much loving as possible. Otherwise, the work won't get to do the results required. So then, Sister Cipriana, who is a woman, a wonderful spiritualized woman, spirit, of course, comes into the place where they were in the hospital. And after many things she did, and she talked to the guys, and then she stretched out her hands toward the two unfortunates and touched them with her loving magnetism. André Luiz says that I was amazed as I saw the power of that sublime woman changing their vibratory field. They both felt weakened, overpowered by a force that compelled them to keep still, experiencing both respect and fear. They looked at each other with unspeakable astonishment, overwhelmed by an impressible and unknown emotion. So back to the drawing board. It's me speaking now. I got this from another book, Evolution in Two Worlds by Chico Xavier. He says, hosts suffering troubling influences, those whose afflictions during their corporeal life attest to the type of and extent of their debts, will have to set their own example in the practice of pure love toward others. They will also have to educate and reform themselves, because only through their examples will they be strong enough to operate renewal and readjustment. The activity of practicing genuine good, displaying a willingness to break from our lower sentiments, produces a powerful means of transformation regarding those who observe us, especially those who share our lives and influence our spiritual atmosphere. Moreover, our displays of fraternity inspire edifying and friendly thoughts in others, thoughts which, in successive circles, are continuous waves of renewing energy, modify our worst enemies' hostile intent towards us. So now we come to the treatment. We can talk about how this happens in our circles. So Spiritist treatment is usually physical. You can get help from any kind of physical activities, even from psychiatrist, medicine, because sometimes if you don't have the basic physical health, things get more difficult. Like beneficent activities, if the person is good enough to practice outreach program works and charitable works, is going to be good. Psychological help, watching for your habits, because a bad habit, we call it addiction. A bad habit is not a good habit, so a bad habit is an addiction. And if we don't start, fighting this kind of addiction, this can be the valve, the energy point where the connection with the spirit is taking place for sure. So if you don't fight that, many things can change, but the basic thing is not going to change. You can take medicine for all of life, but the basic things there is still untouched. And the spiritual help, because the spirit release is very good for that. But even the spirit release, without changing, without the patient changing himself or herself, is not that useful, because things are going to happen the same way, So prayer, self-knowledge. And one point about self-knowledge is very important to highlight. Acquiring self-knowledge without ethics is not that useful. I've met people that said, "Oh, I know myself. I like doing bad to people. I know this." Huh? And that's all. Oh yes, I know. I'm proud of that, right? I like doing bad to people. I'm a wrongdoer, and it's funny, isn't it? But I love that. It's what gives me pleasure. So self-knowledge without ethics, and that's why we chose in Spiritism the ethics of the gospel, because it's a unconditional love. Ethics is very difficult to get there, but it's the only pathway for us to get rid of our problem. Chico Xavier used to say something very interesting. He said, "Learn how to forgive, and you solve the problem of your spirit for eternity." And I think this is something very serious. Now I'm going to share again with you the image. What I'm saying, I read this because these are the basis on which serious groups, I have to say serious groups of Spiritism, because Spiritism is not a religion. You can make up a group right now without reading a book and say, "Oh, this is a Spiritism. We are doing that." This, you spiritualists too. You know how things happen. I mean, it's not an organized religion or something. But a serious group usually focus on these bases, and beautiful things happen in terms of spirit release, and many family sagas I've seen solved after thousands of or hundreds of years. And one point is very important, as I told you before, the notion of reincarnation and the law of cause and effect. Because by knowing this, it's very important that the spirits that are conscious about that, they can use this in the spiritist meeting. You can interrupt at any time, okay, people? So, for example, how does a meeting where I take part nowadays, for example, work? We sit together around the table, about 19 people, from 19 to 20. Some are supportive mediums. They will be there to concentrate, to pray, and all the time to highlight, to put higher the level of the meeting. Everybody committed, very seriously committed, because this meeting works as a hospital. So we cannot play. And even ectoplasmic work happens in this kind of meeting. not in the sense that physical mediumship uses, or medium use this kind of thing, because we use this kind of ectoplasmic thing for the spirit. In the spiritual realm, they use ectoplasmic things to get in touch with spirit in the lower zones and help them and rescue them from the lower zones. And this is beautiful. And nowadays, the work has been very strong. So we get around this table, we pray whatever you want to pray, if you, whatever belief you have, we pray something and we get higher. And the spirits start, usually some mediums or some very specific mediums, they get energized and they, in trance, they give a passive way for manifestation, sometimes very distressed spirits in very, very bad situations. And there are stories, right? Family stories that come from the past. And they are solved there many times with usually with forgiveness, because of vengeance and these kind of things. Usually the reasons are for this kind of persecution, right? And I'll give you one. I remember one beautiful thing, that one beautiful session I was directing. It was me, and I used to say there was a tube. A tube is when you are a director of a meeting like this, is very good, because even if you are not a medium, they make you become a medium. So at that moment, I became a medium and started seeing lots of things. And I saw a tube of light involving all the people in the meeting, all the mediums. And when it happened, I said to myself, or something said to me, there will be a great rescue. Today we're going to rescue someone. And the spirit came to me and said, well, don't even think about degladiating or fighting with reasoning with the spirit that's coming. This spirit is very smart. He's a theologian, a Catholic theologian from the past. I don't know. I think he was a Catholic theologian. I don't remember. And today is his day. His heart is already a little bit tired of everything he's been living in the lower zones, and this is his day. And of course, with the vibration you feel, with the high level of vibration you feel at the moment, say, oh, it's going to be okay. And then I stood up, I came to the medium that started, right, getting in touch with the spirit, and he said, please, everyone, please pray for me, because the situation is so serious. This guy is very strong, and so on and so forth. And the guy came very calmly, right, trying to seduce me into theological talks, trying to fight in a very subtle way. He was very kind. He was very nice, right? A very nice person, and he was charismatic, the spirit, and I feel his charisma in a very good and passionate way. It was a passionate person. But the spirits said, look, don't get into that trap, right? You have to, don't talk about, touch his feeling. Don't talk, no reasoning, no intellect, touch his feeling. And then suddenly came to my mind a Catholic song I knew. Well, I studied Latin in university, and I knew some Latin at the time. I still remember, and it was a Catholic song in Latin. And it came to my mind and say, sing this song to him. So come on, I'm gonna sing a song here, right? And yeah, sing the song to him. When I started singing the song in Latin, the medium let out a strong cry, a very strong cry. It's so good that it was on Sunday. There was only this meeting in the Spiritist house, because it would be a scandal. It would have been a scandal if it had done that. And I saw his heart was a piece of stone. It was started breaking and cracking, lights coming from inside, and he started swearing at me, bad words indeed, and the medium was exhausted after that. The medium was lying down, but In the end, he was crying just like a baby, and he was rescued, right? So this is the way, this is our routine. But I remember something this beautiful, and the person who this spirit was attached had to be taken care of, because when you have this kind of detachment, as there was a symbiosis or a parasital situation with this person who was the victim, quote unquote, of the spirit, has to take care, has to feed, to nourish herself very well, because there is a kind of a shock of the separation, because the spirit had been long following someone that was related to the religious feud, and there goes on the meetings go on like this. And we talked. Sometimes it's a very simple thing, like saying to the person, that convincing a person that the person is discarnate. For example, materialistic people, they sometimes they get out of they die, right, and they keep being materialistic. They say, oh, come on, you're stupid people. You're talking to spirits here in this meeting, but I don't see any spirit. I see myself only, and you. And I am alive. I have a body here, and there's blood in my veins. So why do you talk about spirits? When I was there, I didn't believe in spirits, and I'm here, and I still don't believe in spirits, because I'm matter. I'm not spirit. So, with the help of ectoplasma, the spirits start showing him phenomenon in the spirit realm. And then the guy started getting shocked. And then they materialize, for example, his mother from a spiritual realm, just for them to get a leap and have a notion that spirit, yes, is matter, but they are matter and very different kinds of essence. And sometimes in this situation, they are rescued to a higher realm of life. It's very beautiful. It's really very beautiful, and it's something that I'd like you to come here one day. In this meeting, what I do, there are so many people related and connected with English language, and that sometimes I have to do the work in English, So it would be interesting for you to witness that, right? Maybe thousands of spiritual centers that work this. The point is, we have to observe is that when something becomes very institutionalized and very common, you need to be careful about the quality of the work. Do you understand? It's difficult to find and to form a group. Suppose spiritualism in Australia spreads so much that everybody starts having a physical mediumship meeting in their home or in their institution. Of course, you 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 wouldn't be able to say that, oh, you can trust 90% of these groups. Okay, it's fantastic. No, because quality usually goes down when things are so popular, and these meetings are popular in Brazil. And I've already been in wonderful meetings, and others that were just kind of almost kind of a play in a theater. Mediums were playing the part of a medium. The instructor was playing the part of, sometimes in a very religious, in a derogative way. I'm saying religious, right? Way, and approaching things in a matter kind of puerile, a childish way. And of course, we cannot demand from everyone some kind of expertise. It takes really time, right? They are at beginning. I'm not criticizing, but sometimes this is the point. But yes, there are many groups of that, and they do a wonderful work. And I don't know what could be for us here in Brazil. I don't know in my life, because I've had so many problems solved in my life that came from spirit release sessions, right? That they were solved there. First, because of my work, because this kind of work you do, Victor Zamet and Wendy Zamet, and everybody here does, requires this kind of meeting. It's good for you to have a meeting of that. And sometimes this meeting doesn't need to be physical. Sometimes they do this kind of meeting, maybe in England, maybe there, but without your help, because you don't have this cultural idea of getting together to have this kind of meeting. But it happens spiritually, Because if you don't do this, many things you do to spread the word becomes very, very difficult for you to do. There would be so much impeachment, so much obstacles, so many obstacles that maybe you wouldn't be able to do that. I remember when I was a guy, or some guys now they participate in a place called Portal Saber, the gate of knowledge, portal of knowledge. And they were a little bit naive in terms of that. So I said to them, look, this material are going to make podcasts, you're going to make videos about that. You will need a meeting. You will need a mediumistic meeting to help you, right? Because you have to solve some problems. They didn't believe my words at first, but 2 or 3 months later, they had been going with so many problems in their personal lives that they said, let's let's form that group and let's pray together, and everything was good. Because the first thing the spirits say in a meeting like that, for some time, is to solve the problems of the participants of the meeting. Because how can you help the spirit release if you're not released at all? You understand? So you need to, there's a therapeutic for the people of the meeting for some time first, and then if the group survives, remember, I think it was Ana Castro, she's speaking about the cycles one group goes through until they get together for sure to work. Because there are sometimes people from the spiritual team, the spirits team, that they bring the person to work with you because the person had a problem with you from another incarnation. And suddenly the person said, oh my God, I had been working with this group here in spirit, and now I know that you, Sergio, did wrong to me, and now I have to forgive you. So there are many very beautiful things happening in the situation, and this will be cleaning your life. I think you should this is my personal opinion, okay? People can disagree, of course, but I think if you get this expertise in this situation, you can do wonderful work there where you are, because and it will help psychologists. Now in Brazil, there are many psychologists that they indicate this kind of, and some psychologist says, look, psychiatrically speaking, we've already done this. Psychologically speaking, we are doing this. But now, I'll be honest with you. You should go to a Spiritist center in a spirit release meeting. You need help. You need this kind of help. In this kind of thing, I won't be able to help you. So sometimes even non-Spiritist psychologists already indicate this kind of therapy, right? Go on. Dealing with mediumship, we will deal directly with ethics. That's why we use the gospel essence, not Christianity, but the gospel essence in terms of ethics to nurture us, to understand, because it requires fighting for better ethics in you, outside. But there is a fight, because where there is darkness, this darkness will fight against any kind of light, because you're doing against lots of things in the world when you spread the word of spiritualism. So spiritualists must be stronger, must be very strong people, and we must be united. We need to pray to each other. For example, the Zamets, right? You and your guys, every meeting, your names are on my book there, right? And we pray for you very strongly. Otherwise, it's difficult. It's in a world of darkness, you know. The spirits call our world a world of tests and atonement, going to a world of regeneration. So we are in a transitional moment, a very serious moment. And don't think any one of you, from Rosemary, Craig Rogan, Karen Jarvie, Barbara Reed, Sherry Pearl, no, don't think anything smallest you can be doing is not a very important thing. It's not to polish your pride, I'm saying this. It's because we have to unite our forces. That's why I'm here speaking in English to you, because once call was called, there was a man, I was talking to a man, and the man was getting kind of entranced. He said, Luiz Sergio, you know how to speak English. Why aren't you spreading this word in English, guy? people from all the nations. In English now is a universal language. Why don't you use that language to speak about your experience to people and get their experience back to us? So this is what we need to do. And I think it's been wonderful.